History does not repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Mark Twain might not have actually coined that phrase, but no historian could deny the truth that it conveys, especially when newspaper headlines start to echo the past. With the stock market once again rattled, with uncertainty and trade disputes, this week I researched the Proquest Historical Newspapers database to investigate a financial disaster that looms large in America's memory, the Wall Street crash of 1929. While the outlines of that event are familiar to many, the soaring bubble, the October collapse, the Great Depression that followed, I wanted to dig a little deeper. I approached it not just as a historian, but through the lens of macroeconomics and finance. I began my research expecting a technical story, one of rates, reserves, and regulatory inertia. My aim was to trace how the Federal Reserve's interest rate hikes in the months before the crash might have triggered or worsened the collapse. I assumed I'd be immersed in the cold language of economic indices and policy. But the newspaper articles I found told a different story. Yes, the financial figures were there, but they were all wrapped in drama, outrage, and moral judgment. These articles didn't just report on monetary tightening or bank failures. They named names. They turned famous financiers into villains and made Fed officials into tragic, or in some cases, comic figures. The crash wasn't just portrayed as an economic event. It was a human drama. And in the press, at least, it had clear protagonists and antagonists. The financial page read like a stage play. So I decided to have a little fun with it. To bring this human drama to life, and to summarize my findings, I created a series of Old West-style posters for 3 of the most prominent figures blamed in the coverage of the crash. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek visual device, but keep in mind that each one is grounded in the historical record. First, I'll introduce you to Charles E. Mitchell, better known as Sunshine Charlie. He was the chairman of National City Bank, the predecessor to what is now known as Citibank, and he was one of the most aggressively optimistic voices on Wall Street in the years leading up to the crash. Through investment trusts and wide-reaching credit empire, Mitchell made it easier than ever for Americans to borrow money and buy stocks on margin. He publicly resisted the Federal Reserve's attempts to rein in speculation, famously declaring that credit would remain available in unlimited amounts. In the press, he was portrayed as the symbol of unchecked greed and hubris. Headlines described him not as a steward of finance, but as a salesman pushing risk on the public. When the bubble burst, Mitchell didn't just lose public favor. He became a face of blame, even testifying before Congress in hearings that laid groundwork for banking reforms. Next up is Albert H. Wiggin, head of Chase National Bank. And this guy took villainy to a whole new level. During the chaos of the crash, while his own bank was hemorrhaging value and depositors were panicking, Wiggin quietly shorted his own bank stock. I can't believe this was actually legal, but at the time no laws prohibited it. I assume because it was so clearly crooked. Now, the newspapers had a field day with the revelation, portraying him as the ultimate insider, profiting from the collapse he was entrusted to prevent. His actions were so egregious, they helped spur changes in securities law. In the pages of the New York Times and the Washington Post, Wiggin wasn't just a banker. He was a backroom gambler betting against the house that he helped build. Albert Wiggin, you, sir, are a villain. Finally, we have Roy A. Young, the chairman of the Federal Reserve from 1927 to 1930. This guy wasn't a financier chasing profits. He was a policymaker caught in a storm. But that didn't spare him from blame. Newspapers depicted Young as aloof and indecisive, a man who raised interest rates in 1928 to curb speculation, but then failed to provide the liquidity the economy needed when panic struck. As the banking system buckled and credit froze, Young seemed paralyzed, clinging to outdated doctrines of non-intervention. Journalists skewered him for, and this is a quote, "fiddling with rates while Wall Street burned." Ouch. Being compared to Emperor Nero. Now, if that's not a villain, I don't know what is. To sum this all up, the faces may have changed, but the patterns remain. As today's markets flinch at every trade war headline, the story of 1929 reminds us that behind every chart is a choice, and behind every crash is a cast of characters that history won't soon forget. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.